Kenya is becoming a very sad state. As you can see, there's a lot of anger, bitterness, frustration, a lot of hopelessness in the streets. That's where they're protesting throughout. The young generations have had enough. In fact, Kenya was voted number 119 saddest nation in the world. That's not so far from Afghanistan that was voted 145, and this is by the United Nations. Now, what is really happening to our country? Well, other countries like Finland were voted as the happiest nations in the world, the Scandinavian countries. What is it that we are not doing that the others are doing? Is it our governance? Is it how we do things? Is it the people that we elect in positions of power? Now, today we have a situation in the country where the government says we concede and we are ready to listen to the citizen. And the citizen is saying our voice is now being heard. Now, the question is, what do we do moving forward that we have come to a point where now we are willing to move the country forward? Now, here are my thoughts on what we can do as a nation. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, what we've been doing, we have been switching our drivers. Every time we elect a new president, we kick them out and we say we don't want them. We started with the likes of Jomo Kenyatta, went all the way to Moi, then went to Kibaki, then Uhuru and Ruto, and every time we elect someone, we want to kick them out. Is the problem the driver, or is it the engine of this car called Kenya? And the question is, what can we do? This video, I've been working on it for the last 7 years. I want you to watch this video carefully, and these are my thoughts on what we can do so that Kenyans can live a happier, fulfilling life here and even for the next generation. Get a paper and a pen, and I want to hear your thoughts about what I'm about to propose, a new model of governance in the Republic of Kenya. Hi, how are you doing? This is Sam West. Now, I think we found a cure to a disease that has been ailing Africa, specifically our country Kenya, for a very long time. Now, imagine this. If you are to wake up one day and you don't have to worry about food, about rent, about your school fees, about your health, because the government is actually taking care of those things 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you a kingdom form of governance. Did you know that Kenya is ranked number 119 amongst the saddest nations in the world? One of the biggest reasons why Kenyans are very sad and angry is the struggle for basic needs. Every month, every Kenyan is thinking about, how do I pay my rent? How do I access food? How do I pay my school fees? And how do I have access to good health? In fact, the depression and the stress levels in the country are very high towards the end of the month. Basic needs have become like the purpose of our lives. Now, the big question is, where did this ideology, where does this form of governance come from? Let me take you step by step. There are many forms of governance in this world. There's communism, there's socialism, there's Marxism, there's democracy, there's anarchism. But the big question is this: what has Kenya been functioning on? Truth be told, we are products of a democracy. But the big question is this: are we happy living in this form of governance? One of the things to note is that all these forms of government are man-made ideologies. Democracy is a man-made idea that was developed by the Greeks. One of the biggest foundations of democracy was distrust. That's why we have a form of government that does not trust each other. Look at what we have in Kenya. We have a judiciary that does not trust the executive. The executive does not trust the legislature. The citizens don't trust the government. The citizens don't trust the politicians. The politicians themselves don't trust each other. They keep complaining of betrayal at all times. The other foundation of democracy is that they believed there were people who were born as masters and others were born as servants. Unfortunately, this philosophy of democracy is so inculcated in our cultures, we don't know how deep entrenched it is. For how long is this culture going to affect
our lifestyle. The other foundation of democracy is individualism. This is where everyone thinks about himself. The Greeks believed that it's a question of everyone for himself and God for us all. It was about survival for the fittest, and that is why you see we have a very big gap between the haves and the have-nots. Democracy also has its good areas. It gives them free will and also the freedom to choose. But on the other hand, we are still sad with this form of government. This is a man-made ideology. Don't we have an ideology that is God-made? So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you the kingdom form of governance. So this is a type of a government that Jesus was endorsing in the Bible. You remember in his first public statement, he said, "Change your thinking, the kingdom is here." The Bible says, "And to us a child is born, and the government is upon his shoulders." This is the type of a government that he was bringing into the world. He wasn't bringing a religion, he was actually bringing a government. One of the things about the kingdom government is that it's the right opposite of democracy. One of the things he believes is it's about everyone and not about an individual. That's why even when you pray, you don't say, "My Father in heaven." You say, "Our Father in heaven. Give us." It doesn't say, "Give me my daily bread." It thinks about everyone at large. It assumes everyone is a leader in their area of gifting. It talks about going out there and dominating, and people being built in the image and the likeness of God. One of the things to understand is that a kingdom government also has a principle where all the basic needs of the citizens are taken care of by the government. You remember the story of Jesus? He said, "Don't worry about those things. Don't worry about food. Don't worry about clothing. As long as you seek the kingdom and the righteousness, all these other things will be added unto you." It is possible to have a government that takes care of all your basic needs as a person. This is what happens. Imagine if you woke up one day and you didn't have to worry about food, about clothing, about shelter, about your school fees, about your health. What would you do? Kenyans who resort to picking jobs that are aligned to their passions, jobs that are aligned to their gift, and there's nothing so powerful like someone operating in the area of gifting and also aligning yourself to your purpose in life. But at the moment, the purpose of many people right now is just to take care of bills. This is one of the reasons why Kenya is a very sad nation. According to a UN report, top 10 happiest countries in the world have their governments covering all the basic needs of their citizens. Countries like Finland, Denmark, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, they take care of all the basic needs of their citizens. They take it as a responsibility of the government. So what I'm proposing right here is not just a dream. This is something that can happen in our country right here in Kenya. Unfortunately, this is what Kenyans have resorted going into. They are now into prostitution. They are now into crime just because they need to put food on their table. At the moment, we have a culture, what we call the Wababa culture. Married men taking care of young girls, providing them with basic needs in exchange for sexual favors. Unfortunately, it's the same strategy that even politicians are using, where they give you basic needs in exchange for votes. What is supposed to be your right, what is supposed to be your privilege as a citizen, is being exchanged for something else. This culture needs to stop. Did you know in Kenya, 52% of graduates are in jobs they didn't study because what they wanted to do, they didn't get jobs in those areas. So what they did, they picked jobs that cover their bills. Some people are also taking advantage of the fact that Kenyans can't afford basic needs. Bosses understand that you need the wage at the end of the day. So what do? They decide how much this person gets paid. They decide how this person gets to use their time. They tell them report here at 8 and leave here at 5. They even decide when to fire and hire someone because they know that you are highly dependent on that salary for basic needs. Banks as well have also decided to take advantage of the fact that we have poor Kenyans who can't cover their basic needs. Did you know right now Kenyans are borrowing 1.6 billion on Fuliza on a daily basis? 300 Kenyans are applying for Fuliza loan every second, and this money is just going to cover basic needs. When a thief comes to your house and steals your TV, then sells it, it's because they want to cover their basic needs. If we as a country decide we are going to have leadership that prioritizes the basic needs of the citizens, we are going to have a shift in how things move.
The big question is, how do you finance this type of government? Now, what you need to know is that Kenya is a very wealthy nation. The amount of money that is collected by the government on a daily basis, my friend, we can do so much with it. If only there was no corruption, if only there was transparency, there was accountability and integrity in how we manage our finances. Some of the expenditure is unnecessary. There are so many positions that are not necessary. There are cabinet positions that can be merged. My friend, if only the expenditure can be worked on, you'll be shocked at the amount of money that Kenya runs on a daily basis. On the other hand, we have lots of natural resources that we can use to finance this type of model for Kenyans.
One of the things we want to encourage our citizens is to work, but there's also something that is called creating an environment that allows people to work. Before God created the fish, He created the water. Before He created the birds, He created the atmosphere. Before He created man, I'm talking about Adam, He first created an environment that allowed him to work. If you read the Bible carefully, you'll find that Adam was put in a garden. Adam was not put in a bush. In that garden, there was everything that he needed to survive. There were fruits that he could eat, there was access to water, and he was okay. So when he was told to work, the environment was conducive for him. The big question of the day, what we have in Kenya, is it a garden or is it a bush? Is the environment conducive for young Kenyans to work? One of the ways we are saying, for this environment to be right, let us take off the burden of basic needs from Kenyans. The future of this country is in great leaders. We need leaders that are not only thinking about the next general election. We need leaders that are thinking about the next generation. Let me give you examples of leaders who did something that changed their country for good. No wonder they have a happy nation. Norway in 1963 was in the same position our country Kenya is. We are in debts of 13 trillion, way beyond the debt ceiling created by Parliament at 9 trillion. We have a budget of 3.3 trillion this year, and 1.8 is going into debts. Now, let me take you back to Norway. Norway in 1963, they discovered oil in their country. But instead of wasting that money, what they did, they created what they call a sovereign wealth fund, and all that money was deposited in the fund. Norway has the biggest savings kitty in the world. They have saved up $1.3 trillion, way bigger than China and even bigger than the US. Now, this money, if it were to be distributed to all the citizens in Norway, everyone would get 25 million Kenya shillings. They would go for the next 7 years even without working. The money was not given to the citizens. It was also not given to the government itself. They invested this money in some of the biggest companies in the world. They would probably go to a company like Google and invest 1.5% shares. Go pick another bigger company and invest in those companies. What happens is, at the end of the year, they get proceeds from the money they invested, and that is the money they use to to provide basic needs in their country. They provide food, they provide free education, they provide health, they provide housing for all their citizens. It is possible to have such a government here in Kenya.
I assure you, with good leadership, we can take this country to the next level. There's something that Jesus said. He looked at the people and said, look at them. They look harassed, they look oppressed, just like sheep without a shepherd. With the right type of leadership, we can take this nation to the next level. Tell me, what are your thoughts about this idea and proposed way of taking this country to the next level? I would like to hear your ideas on the comments below. Tell me, what are your thoughts? My name is Sam West.